What it do? I'm Wood Dude. I've been doing woodworking for 2 years now, and I want to add upholstery to my aggressively small list of skills. So to learn how to upholster, I designed 3 cushion benches that will take 1 hour, 1 day, and 1 week to build. Let's start with a 1 hour build. 1 hour? 1 hour is nearly enough time. Starting now. Son of a bitch. Now, I will be the first to admit that the woodworking for this 1 hour build is not the best. I basically cut up some 3/4 inch pieces of plywood and made a very simple box with an open bottom, just using some nails and glues to put it together. For the legs, I splurged on some 2-inch thick solid rustic walnut that I milled and cut up. After a quick sanding and chamfering of the edges, I glued them onto the plywood box like so. And I did use some screws to give it a little bit more reinforcement. At this point, I was already 30 minutes in and I haven't even begun with the actual upholstery part of this build, so I panic grabbed some 3-inch thick high density foam, cut it to size, and glued it onto the top of the plywood box with some spray adhesive. Then I wrapped the sides of the box in some quilt batting polyfill, whatever the fuck you call it, that will help soften the edges and cover that hard plywood. I just glued it to the sides and just stapled it into the open bottom. Then it was time for the fabric. I chose a blue denim type fabric and stretched it over every side and stapled it to the open bottom. Probably obvious by watching this, but I had no idea what I was doing. But after some negotiating, I was able to get the fabric around each leg and secured. Then I added a dust cover and voila, it's done. A little cushion chair, bench seat thingy. Okay, so now that we have the 1 hour build out of the way, I can now say that I hate it. It looks like it was someone's first upholstery project, because it was, but I've learned a lot from this build and I'm ready to apply it into the 1 day bench build. I've got some fantastic white oak here, so let's get started. For the 1 day build, I gave myself 8 hours that I spread over 2 days because I usually only work mornings in my shop. For this one, I really focused on improving my first attempt. I noticed that I really hated the fact the fabric stretched over the sides of the box. It looked, dumb. So this time, I'm making the base out of white oak and attaching a seat cushion on top of that. You'll see. The base is just a mitered box with some stretchers and some hidden pocket holes on the sides. Once it was done, I moved on to the seat cushion. I cut out a piece of MDF the same size as the base and glued on some of that 3-inch high density foam. But this time, I glued on a 1-inch thick, even more firm foam to the top because I noticed in my first attempt, my thick cake of an ass just sunk straight through the foam and I could feel the plywood. This 1-inch firm foam should help prevent that, hopefully. Then I wrapped the whole thing in polyfill and stapled it on the underside, and then again in some of this off-white textured fabric. Quick tip, when you're doing your own bench cushion, start off by stapling the fabric to one of the long sides with just a few staples in the center, and then immediately go to the opposite side and stretch that fabric taut and then staple the other side. Then I just do the same thing for the short sides. And once I'm done with that, I add a metric buttload of staples working out from the center, pulling the fabric all along the way until I reach the corners. And these corners are really important. Take your time in the corners because you can really mess them up if you don't take your time. Trust me, I know. With the cushion done, I can now focus on the legs of the bench. I went with this tapered kind of angled legs that I think will look really cool, made from some more solid white oak and cut out using my CNC to save some time. I glued them up into these pairs and reinforced the legs with some hidden dowels. I'm going to attach these legs to the base using some wood glue and some screws. And after rounding over some of the edges of the legs and the base, I can attach the cushion to the base using those hidden pocket holes I mentioned earlier. And with that, I just did a quick check to make sure everything, works. It doesn't break. Yeah, looks pretty good. I had some time left, so I hammered in some white upholstery nails to the front and sides of the bench, making sure, obviously, to use a spacer to make sure the nails are evenly spaced. And with that, the 1 day bench build is done. And this one is way better than that shitty excuse of a bench blue one. But I think I can do even better. For this final upholstery bench build, I'm pulling out all the stops. I'm talking fancy woodworking and fancy-ish upholstery-ing. And to start, I'll be making the base out of some solid rustic walnut, similar to the 1 day bench build base, but this time I'm going to glue the frame together with a plywood sheet on the inside. You'll see why later. First, we need to tackle the legs, using some 2-inch walnut I cut into leg-sized pieces. To connect it to the base, I created this joint, the double half-lap joint, I think. This will make it so when I attach the legs on the inside of the base, the legs will be flush with the outside of the base. I cut a taper on the 2 inside sides of the legs and then glue it all together, and we have a rock solid bench base. Next, I wanted to improve on the one-day bench by adding some storage. So I put together a quick pocket hole box ring and glued that onto the top of the base. But I hate that you can see the pocket screws on the sides of the box, so I made some pieces of walnut with this curvy maple inlay to cover it up. To make the inlay, it's stupid simple. I just took some pieces of walnut and cut a curve, creating 2 pieces, and then glued those 2 halves back together with a thin strip of maple. Then I just did the same thing again to get a second curve. And once I mitered the edges of the walnut pieces, I glued them onto the box. Now obviously this box needs a lid, so for the lid, it's the same process I just did for the sides, except different. This time I took 2 pieces of wood, walnut and maple, and attached them together before taking it to the bandsaw to cut a curve. I could then detach the 2 pieces, and you'll notice how one of the maple pieces fit perfectly with the walnut piece. So I glued those 2 different woods together, sandwiching a strip of red Paduke. Then I just did the same thing all over again. Would you look at that? I believe this is called a woven wood pattern. Looks nice. Now finally, for the cushion. Most of the cushion making is the same as the one-day bench build. Cut a plywood piece, glue some foam on it, and then staple down some cotton batting. But not only did I up my fabric game this time and got this gorgeous emerald pattern, I'm also going to add little diamond tufts in the cushion as well, kind of like this. I got this idea from one of Bourbon Moth's woodworking videos, a one-of-a-kind woodworker with one kind of voice. To make these diamond tufts, I take some needle and string and feed it through the bottom of the plywood. Wait, shit. I forgot to mention. I made holes in the plywood sheet that line up with the holes I also made in the foam as well. You have to do that, otherwise this won't work. Anyways, you need to feed the needle with the string from the bottom through the plywood, through the fabric on the top, back down the fabric to the bottom of the plywood. Once you do that, you just give it a little tug and pull and watch as the diamond tuft appears. To preserve the diamond, you just need to staple the string onto the plywood on the back. Honestly, it's pretty simple once you do it. The hardest part is getting that damn needle back through the bottom hole because you can't see shit and you're just constantly poking and prodding until you get the sweet release and find a hole. Okay, so it's at this point in the build we got most of the stuff done for the bench. All that's left is to do some of the buttons that go inside these little seat cushions here. I still need to add a hinge onto him. And then of course a little bit of final sanding and some finish, and then we should be good to go. The plan is to sell these benches on Facebook Marketplace. I hope to sell the solid oak and white upholstered bench for about $200. And I hope to sell the walnut and emerald upholstered bench for $350. And this one I'm selling for $0 because I don't want to curse any household with this monstrosity. And as a thanks for making it this far in the video, I have something that I want to give one of you watching this video right now. I had some left over from when I made the wood woven pattern on that walnut bench, so I figured I'd make it into a coin tray. If you're interested in this tray, just comment down below in the video and say, I want that tray. In a week, I will randomly choose one of the comments and I will announce the winner on my next video. That will probably come out, I don't know, like 2-3 weeks, we'll see. I have no idea. Anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you have a good day. Peace.